The screen capture images used within this video are for educational, reference, commentary, and instructive purposes regarding this custom model building project and fall under fair use, fair dealing guidelines. Movie clips have been transformed and are built upon to create a new form of art and presentation and also fall under fair use, fair dealing guidelines. Hello and welcome to my Model Corner Project 23. In this episode we'll make quite a change in direction from our recent and more somber videos to create something completely different and comical. While the 747 in the movie was not a Dash 8, let's give Agent Powers an upgrade. This may not be everyone's cup of tea, but we'll be using techniques for unusual paint patterns, including calculating dimensions for custom templates and decal work, all from images with no known scale, which may be helpful to other modelers for other projects. We'll also be trying to come up with ideas on how best to approach unique challenges that may arise with an attitude and a sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. At any rate, we'll get a sense of how this kit fits together as well as what this set has to provide should someone care to build a more conventional version of this Revell 747. So what do you think so far? Let's ask this viewer who has just subscribed to the channel on what he'd like to see in this undertaking.
I have one simple request, and that is to have sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
Well, that might be a future project one day, but let's work on this jet first, okay?
Right.
We'll begin with the normal steps to prepare and join together the parts as we would any other 747 aircraft model. Later, we'll tackle the unusual tie-dye paint scheme and the intricacies involved. The kit I received was produced a little below average. There is flash around many pieces which are worrisome around such delicate parts as the fan blades. This landing gear's hole for the wheel axle is fully filled in with plastic and has to be drilled out. The inlets have bumps of excess plastic where the factory mold apparently has gouges. I mainly use the extra thin cement to build as it yields a cleaner appearance and excess can be easily sanded away or just painted over. I use the thicker glues for areas where I need greater strength, such as the wings. What do you use?
Liquid hot magma.
We can multitask our airbrushing to get ahead.
Oh, behave.
This model requires a counterweight in the nose. I'll place a piece of copper pipe and hot glue it in at the nose gear bay. We can take the opportunity now to paint in some window shades, making them partially or fully drawn. The main fuselage halves mating is a decent fit, and we can easily secure them together a few inches at a time. From our screen images, there are two choices of engine exterior colorings. Style 1 is a dark inlet and a lighter metallic color body, while Style 2 is a light inlet with a darker metallic color body. I'm choosing Style number 2. This is a rather tight fit, so if you really want it to rotate, you'll have to plan ahead. We'll do some wash to highlight the panels, but we don't want the engines to look dirty. We have many layers of paint and highlighting to apply, so time to cover all our glass. Can you guess how many passenger and door windows there are? The answer coming up shortly. The fit of the wings is good too, so we can work on these sections separately and then join them together later on. I was up in the air about possibly using a lighter color for my primer coat or going for my standard black shading. I figured that the paint brand I chose would behave like Tamiya paints I've used in the past and just went with the NATO black. Boy, was that a mistake. In the first movie, the 747 exhibits the alphanumeric registration November 747 Whiskey Alpha, and in the third movie, the 747 is clearly listed as November 747 Papa Alpha. Both are actual registration numbers, and I was able to find some history. There are enough interesting tidbits I discovered to warrant a pause in the build to take a look at the actual aircraft for aviation buffs and for your trivia knowledge banks. To begin with, Whiskey Alpha began service in 1973 for World Airways and has changed hands over the years, including Pan Am, the Flying Tiger Line, and airlines in Malaysia, India, and Saudi Arabia. It was retired and stored by Evergreen International Airlines in 1994 with the registration designation of November 471 Echo Victor. 747 Papa Alpha has a richer history. It was actually a 747-121 and was the second 747 ever built and was part of the initial testing program for Boeing. She served most of her career with Pan Am. On July 30, 1971, November 747 Papa Alpha was designated as Flight 845 for a San Francisco to Tokyo trip. Due to pilot error of miscalculating for a takeoff speed on a runway shorter than thought, incorrect flap settings, and failure to follow proper procedures, the jet took off, but too low and struck airport lighting equipment, seriously injuring 2 of the 218 aboard. It was repaired and continued to fly with Pan Am until 1991 when the company went out of business. She then flew with Cabo Air and Aeropost Lines until 1997, where it was stored, then cut up in 1999. The story does not end there. Parts of the 747 were then shipped to South Korea, where it was painted as an Air Force One 747 and repurposed into a restaurant until that facility was closed and the aircraft sections were scrapped in 2010. Finally, there was a belief that the parts of those scrapped fuselage sections were then rebuilt into a church and aviation museum known as the Jesus 747. However, other aviation fans found images and data that both the church and the restaurant existed at the same time in 2010. So they had to be different 747 aircraft fuselages. We only have 2 shots to work with as the tangible screen appearances of the Austin Powers 747 are very short. The central fuselage is consistent in both movies. However, we can only view the left side. This second shot is more helpful as we get a better look at the flight control surfaces. The main wings have patterns that are mirrored consistently between the 2 sides. Yet, the horizontal stabilizer patterns are different from each other. This may add some doubt about the accuracy in coming up with the right-sided neon veneer of the vertical tail and the central body. Finally, the Toy by Collectible Concepts group is shaky as a reference, for as you can see, the main wings do not match the movie 747 version. So in order to achieve our required exterior skin of this jumbo jet, I'm going to employ a variety of oddball measures which all put together will attain our end result. This will seem a bit convoluted, but...
Gentlemen, I have a plan.
So we'll do a combination of measurements and picture overlays to create our airbrush templates. To keep it simple, we use measurements for the flight control surfaces to determine enlargement ratios for each edge. We can then place points at the beginning and end of each pattern band, then fill in the lines. The fuselage buzz is a different challenge as the profile shapes of the classic 747 and the stretched 747-8 are different. We can manipulate the image of Austin's 747 over the schematic of the Dash 8 by deselecting the aspect ratio and elongate the image in each direction as needed to best fit the diagram and make our templates. We begin testing out our colors on the stabilizers. Since Tamiya does not manufacture the colors we need, I was able to obtain colors somewhat close to what we require from the Vallejo airline. The bottles frequently had to be shaken to maintain consistent viscosity. It applied very poorly as the layers are so thin that it required 4 or more coats to cover the black. It's very wet and slow drying and can flow under the paper templates, making them less effective in this case. You can use a hairdryer to speed up things, but this would be another step just to paint. Let's hit the main wings now. This is a montage of the various colors being applied, as well as the particular task of masking and then removing selected sections to accommodate our stylish patterns as each color is completed. Continuing on to the main fuselage in a similar fashion as to the wings, we find eventually the numerous coats and the watery nature of the paint, the masks become compromised and the protection they afforded undermined. Consequently, I altered the use of the paper templates mainly to trace the outlines of the patterns onto the fuselage and then add cut pieces of tape to form our airbrush borders. Well, at long last, we're ready to prepare for the final color. For our custom decal, we'll use the Papa Alpha registration alphanumeric. Since the tail flash initials are in an unusual font and we can't enlarge our pictures with enough resolution for the emblem, we can cut out the initials from the movie poster, clean them up, and make our custom decals. My printer couldn't produce the correct color for the letters, so I filled them in with paint. To keep a cleaner look, I used a sharp pencil rather than a wash to highlight the wing panel lines. I started on the fuselage but noted that the penciling in was detracting from the main paint job, so I elected to forego that on the main body and tone down the lines I had already laid down. Let's start putting it all together. The landing gear is very weak structurally, so I recommend using the display stand included in the kit. I painted mine in a semi-gloss black. We place the engines starting with number 2 and 3, then 1, and number 4. We're just about done here. Would you like to see the finished product?
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Now for the gloss coat. This was a bit of an exercise and a learning experience. I think this would do better for someone who has an excellent drawing ability, uses a lighter primer color, and chooses enamels instead of acrylics. I hope you enjoyed this one. Take care, and we'll see you later.